Welcome to Class Soulmate. My name is Justice. So for us to make this 6 pieces skirts or 6 panel skirts, we're going to use this beautiful fabric. You can use any fabric of your choice. So to start with, we're going to draft our basic skirt. We're going to draft our basic skirt to start our 6 pieces skirt. So if you do not know how to draft the basic skirt, you can watch our previous video on how to make a pencil skirt. So here I'm going to use the widest part of my measurement, which is the hip divided by 2, to get the width of the paper that I'm going to use, and that is what I just marked. Okay, so once you have that, you're going to locate the midpoint of the paper and mark. Right, that is more like your hip divided by 4, and you mark it on a straight line. Okay, and that is exactly what I am doing. So one part becomes the front, one becomes the back. So on both the front and the back, we're going to mark our waist to hip measurement, and that is what I'm ruling across: waist to hip measurement. And then from the waistline, which is the upper part, we're going to mark our waist to knee measurement. The knee here should be above your actual knee by 2 or 3 inches. So I'm going to mark the knee measurement there. So we have the waist, the hip, and the knee. Then the full length of the skirt. So come down at the front by 1 inch, and then mark your waist divided by 4 and connect them together. This is what I've just done. Then connect it to the hip point, right? Exactly what I've just done. Now for the back, we're going by 0.75 and connect to the hip point. This is to create an illusion, but you might not need it. And then we mark our waist divided by 4 and locate the midpoint to mark our darts ½ inch on both sides, and then add back the 1 inch again. No, so that we don't run shortage, and we'll connect to the hip point. And of course, we're going to draw down our that leg and connect the ½ inch on both sides to it. Right, so here we have our basic skirt, and we'll proceed to drafting the 6 pieces. So at this point, if you've not subscribed to this channel, I don't know what you are waiting for. Kindly subscribe to our channel as we proceed to making our 6 pieces skirts, right? So let's get started. So mate, this is more like a bit. We're going to divide this front waistline into two. 31 divide by 2. Okay, so once you mark the midpoint, we're going to measure what it is. Here I have 3.9, so I'm going to measure 3.9 on the hip line. I'll measure the same thing on the knee line, the 3.9, that is our waist circumference for the front, divide by 2. I'll equally measure it on the length. And I'll connect a straight line on these dots. I'm going to connect a straight line. So this is our first panel line for the front. We're probably going to get the one for the back. Now for the back, you can decide to divide this into 2 and mark the midpoint. That is from here to here, which definitely is going to affect the dart line, right? But in this case, we are going to follow the center of the dart. Okay, we're going to follow the center of the dart and connect it on a straight line. So I expect you to either do this or do the other one. So we're going to connect it on a straight line, just the same way we connected the front. So you can see that. I hope you're not confused with the multiple lines. This is still for the back and this is for the front. So in between the lines, we're going to tighten our knee area in between the lines. On this knee line, that is where we're going to do the tightening. Now for us to tighten around this part, we're not going to tighten here on this front area. We're not going to tighten on this line because we don't want to have any form of puff around the front hip line. We need it to be straight since it's at the front. Okay, so our tightening is going to be on this area. Here is still part of the front, so we're going to tighten here, the side back, in between this line 1 and 2, and then the center back. So we're going to have how many areas? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is where we're going to take our tightening from. Okay, so our knee circumference, our step guide is 36. I've shown us a picture on how to take the step guide around the knee area in a walking position, not like you're going to expand your legs so much. If you cannot take the measurement, you can always minus from the hip line. You can take away 1.5 inch or 1 inch from the hip line to get what is around there, then measure it, use it to tighten. But this, what I'm doing, is just the best way to do it. Take your round knee measurements and use it to tighten the difference between the hip and the knee to tighten your knee area. So since the step guide we have is 36 and the hip is 41, we're going to minus 36 from 41, and that will give us 5 inches. So 41 minus 36 is going to give us 5 inches. Now the 5 inches, we're going to divide it into two because this pattern, the whole of this is half of the measurement. So half of it is not here, and we're going to keep for the half that is not here, right? So divide the 5 into 2, and that will give us 2.5. Now we're going to use the 2.5 to tighten this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like we said, we're not going to tighten this part, and this is the center front, which is not going to be open. So 2.5 divide into 5 places, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to be having half inch on all the sides, from side of the front to the back, half inch. So we're going to be marking half inch on all the sides. After marking, you will still take your measurement to be sure it's up to 36 when you measure it, so that you don't run shortage of your measurements. Okay, so this is where we're going to be having them, and then we're going to use our ruler to connect to the hip area. I'm not going to connect exactly to the point. I'm going to give an allowance. I'll come down by, say, 1 inch. Okay, just to curve that part a bit. Okay, so this is where I've connected. It must not always be half an inch, or measurements must not always be the same. There are instances where you can have up to 4 inches depending on the size of the person. So we're going to connect this to this area. If you've not tried this method before, you can try it and see how it's going to come out. Okay, so we're going to also connect the center back. So this is what we have. And now whatever it is that we have, we're going to mark them straight down, straight down, straight down. Okay, connect it straight on each line, straight down, straight down. No more tightening at the lower part, straight down. Here is already straight, so we're not going to be minusing anything. So I'll just take them straight down. That we did not tighten around here does not mean we're not going to add our flare here. We're going to add our flare, but we will not tighten it. That is just the essence. So we're going to label. In case you want to cross check, you can always cross check your measurements. So I'm going to place my tape at the center front and measure down to where I have the first tightening. I'll push it over to the next one, connect again to where I have this other one. I'll push it over and then connect to this other part. Okay, so we only have a shortage of 0.25, right, which will not affect us so much. A shortage of 0.25, that will make it 18 plus 18, which is 36 inches for our knee. All right, so I'm going to label and cut. This is CB1, CB2, center front 2, center front 1, which is the CF. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting. We have up, 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 up. So I'm just going to cut in between the lines, in between the lines, in between the lines. That's where we are going to cut from. You can decide to transfer this pattern to another paper in case you want to use it next time. You can choose to transfer it, but I like to draft each time I want to cut, if it cut. So I'm just going to cut in between these lines. Like this shaded part is the part that will go out. Okay, this part, and here we're going to cut in between. This part is going out. This part, that area is going out. Here is going out. This part too is going out. Okay, so this is just the 6 pieces pattern. After cutting all of this, we're going to be making triangles that will be attached to the lower part of the skirt to form the flay. I know someone may be asking, how is the flay going to come about? The flay is going to come about once we're done cutting. And of course, you should know that this is pattern drafting, not a freehand. Okay, so if you are going to be doing it on a freehand, you already know what to do. This is pattern that or patterning. Okay, so after now, we're going to attach triangles to each part of the panel. So this is the triangle I'm talking about. We're going to measure the length from where we want the flay to start, and then measure the width of the flay that we want. So here I was using 5 inches for each of the sides that are going to have the flay. The front part CF does not have any flay because it's not going to be open. Only the side has the flay. And of course, we did not tighten it, but like I said, we're going to add flay to it. So the center back, you can decide to elongate it more than the others to give it a sweep effect. Now this is the waistline, and from this pattern we're going to cut our band. You cannot make this pattern like this and then still add extra band to it without cutting it out. It's actually going to be above where it shouldn't be. Okay, remember this is our full measurement, right? So I'm going to cut the band out. I'm using 1 inch for the band. You can decide to use either 1 inch or 1.5, but I think 1 inch is better. So you can label it so that you don't mix it up while cutting. This front part, I'm going to join them together as you can see. So I've cut the center front and I'm cutting the side fronts, and then I will use my masking tape and put them together, right? One benefit about drafting is that you get to see how everything is before you start sewing. If there's any mistake, you can always correct it before you start sewing. Okay, so once I've cut it out, I can now place it. Now look at this pattern on the fabric. It has one direction. The bigger butterflies are below, so I'm going to shift the patterns below so that all the bigger butterflies will stay down. Okay, so I'm cutting the side, the front part of the pattern, the CF and the side CF. After which I'm going to place the ones for the back and cut them as well. I hope you're learning from this simple tutorial that I've just made for you. In case you find it valuable, please kindly make a comment in the comment section. So this is after cutting. The lining is shorter than the main fabric so that it can fold inside. Okay, so for the joining, for the style that I'm making, the front part is going to be open by the side. The sides of the front panel is going to be open. So I will use this lining to turn only the front piece. Where's the front piece? This is the front piece, right? This is okay lining. That's why we have this. So I'm just going to turn this front part on with the lining alone. Then this other one, I'm going to join the lining separate and join the fabric separate because I don't want to see the same lines inside. But the front, we're going to see the same line because I'm going to place it on top of the skirt. I'm not going to join it as usual. That's the style I'm making. Okay, so all we have to do now is just to join it according to how we have it here, side by side, using the allowance that you added. By the side I added 1 inch, the front and back side, then in between ½ inch on all the sides. Okay, so let's go and join, and I will see you when making the band.